You should have heard that. I'm going to come back to view this on Facebook, and that way I'll be able to see it there again. All right. All right. And we are back as far as I can see. Now your comments are coming through. And hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that, folks. We're back. It looks like I'm behind a little bit now on comments. Some of your comments aren't showing up. So anyway, all right. So we're glad you're with us this morning on Morning Brew. This is something that we do every Tuesday at 8 o'clock a.m. unless you hear otherwise. So it's a time for people to be able to ask questions. I have several questions that are in the queue that are sent in. If you'd like a question answered on here, we will show it either live, we'll interact live about it, or you'll also be able to see the broadcast later on, the repeat broadcast on YouTube, and of course on Facebook. You can always watch it there. So anyway, all right, so let's talk now. For some reason, I'm not able to see your comments now. Don't know why. Very strange. Let me try this again, and hold on a second. All right. All right, so we're gonna give this a shot again. Now let's talk. What the first question that came in originally, and last week we were supposed to relaunch this, and we did not. As everybody found out later on Sunday, we had a medical emergency with my mother-in-law, so it caused me to go out of town, and so we were unable to do this. So the question came in about the book, The Secret, and rather than just repeat the question as is, it really has to do with the validity of the book, The Secret. If you haven't seen the book, The Secret, by Rhonda Byrne, it's really a combination of allegedly mystical wisdom. That the secret is that we can manifest our own destiny. In other words, I can think about certain things and create my own manifestation of what I want. Now, again, it's funny with a lot of this stuff, there is always a little bit of truth that is mixed in with error. And that's the case with The Secret. I see a lot of believers, a lot of Christians, a lot of followers of Christ are like, hey, The Secret. And if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, there's a movie called The Secret. I actually watched it before, and it's based on the book, and it's how all these people have manifested their destiny and that sort of thing. The challenge to The Secret is that part of it is true. Part of it is true. The other part of it is that they're selling you a bill of goods, because if they told you what it really took, most people would give up. Most people would say, well, I don't want to do that. We're all look for the easy way to do things. And so the idea is that if I can somehow sit in a chair and meditate and think that I will manifest this, and it will suddenly, I'm going to, they call it the law of attraction. I'm suddenly going to have this attract all of this stuff from me. So by nature, if I'm attracting something, it means that I'm not going to it. Which understand that. If I'm a magnet and I attract something then is being pulled to me. I'm not having to go towards it, which implies that because I'm attracting it, that there's not any effort involved in it, that it actually becomes effortless. And they will ask you, have you ever seen how it looks like that there are people who seem to, whatever they do, everything seems to come to them and they make it look easy? Well, the fact of the matter is that most people don't tell you how hard it really is, because if they did, they wouldn't believe you. That's part of the problem with these things. We look at other people's highlight reel and we don't know what they've been through to get there. And sometimes a highlight reel is not even true. We've talked about that on other Morning Brew broadcasts before. The fact that there are people that will actually go borrow against their credit card, pull all the cash out that they can, go and take pictures sitting in piles of cash, put it on Instagram with a nice filter, making them look better than they've ever looked in their life. And they talk about how now they're rolling in cash because of this particular course and blah, 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 blah. And they want you to buy this course. Then they go take the money, they pay whatever interest they had to pay, and they put it back in, or they pay that card back off again. This kind of thing happens over and over again. People taking pictures in front of yachts that aren't theirs, in front of planes that aren't theirs. And so we see that and we think, wow, they're attracting this to themselves. And so it's easier to sell a book and to sell a course if I tell you all you have to do is just do this specific thing every day. If you just take this pill, if you just take this, if you just say this mantra, if you just take this one action, if you just sit in the morning and think and visualize, you will attract it to you, and you'll suddenly have all of the money and all of the fame and all of the stuff that you're looking for will come to you. Again, the law of attraction is important, but what we're missing in there is it's like people go from I'm going to attract it because I'm going to think it, and then it's going to come to me. I'm going to manifest it. So in other words, what we forget in between that step of thinking and that step of manifesting is the action that takes place in between. Now, I want to take you back to the scriptures. Way back in the Bible, there are various verses. One in Proverbs that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. In other words, the principle of what you think about, you become. That's not what you get, but what you are predominantly thinking about, you are going to become. We now know through science that our mindset affects everything else that we do in our lives. It even affects how we deal with disease, how we deal in our relationships, how we deal in business, how we deal in church, how we view God. That mindset in the brain is so powerful that it is true that what you think about, you're going to become. Now, there's also something in the brain called the reticular activating system, which, as we have talked about before, is that thing that filters out the stuff that doesn't seem to matter. It's the reticular activating system is the thing that is at work. If there's a bird chirping at nighttime and suddenly you're in a dead sleep and there's a sound that you don't recognize, the reticular activating system goes bam, and you are up because something is different. So the brain and the mind is certainly a powerful thing. And it is true that what we predominantly think about, we're going to become. You keep thinking about negative, you're going to continue to be negative. If you think positive, it doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to get everything that you want in life, but your mindset gives you a better, it puts you in the direction of being able to do that. So when people talk about visualization, like there are people that do what's called vision boards. There's a board up right here at my office that is not mine, it's my son's, of various different things that he's done. There's actually one picture of a guy reaching up at the Naval Academy when he was thinking about going to the Naval Academy. And it's very interesting that, I can sit here and look at this and see the different things that are important to him on this vision board. So people do vision boards of the cars that they want and the type of house that they want. And they used to call one of the old network marketing organizations used to call it dream building, that you go and you dream. The problem is if you're always dreaming and you don't have a plan to execute how you're going to get there, a realistic plan, a plan like what they call SMART goals that are, specific and measurable and achievable, time bound and realistic. That's what you have to work towards. Mindset is going to help you work towards that. Now let's back up to the scriptures even further. In the book of Joshua, chapter 1, Joshua, of course, has been tapped to lead Israel into the promised land. It's a remarkable, remarkable story. We're probably going to go back and look at it at some point in the future, because what Joshua does is incredible. Now, the view seems to be with people, if you just grab the book of Joshua and read it, is that suddenly Joshua is chosen in one moment, and God says, Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. You're the guy that's going to lead the Israelites into the promised land. God had been preparing Joshua for years. If you remember, it was Joshua and Caleb, each representing a tribe of Israel, way back when they were getting ready to go to the end of the promised land. And God said to Moses, I want you to get a representative from each tribe. We're going to send spies in to spy out the land. As they went in, interesting, all 12 of the spies came back, and Moses said, okay, what's your report? And they were like, well, these people are too big. The land is rough, and on and on and on it went. They were complaining about it. And Joshua and Caleb were like, wait a minute, we can do this. The Lord's on our side. And literally people started grumbling against Joshua and Caleb and Moses and Aaron and all of the leadership, because these guys actually said, no, let's have faith. God's given us the land. We can do this. Well, you know the rest of the story. Eventually Israel, they sin again. And so they have to wander for 40 years in the wilderness. The problem is here's the guys with a positive mindset and the mindset of faith, and they're stuck for 40 years in the wilderness with all the other people that didn't believe. So what I want us to realize is that sometimes manifesting, it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you're going to have the positive mindset and keep the faith when you feel like you are wandering and waiting. Even if other people are responsible for you wandering and waiting, you've got to keep the faith. It's so important to get up every day and to keep executing the plan and to make sure that you have a positive mindset. Giving up on it and saying this is not worth it doesn't work. So understand that 40 years has passed. Finally, because of Moses and what he did, God told him, you're not going to get to enter the land, you're going to get to see it. So Moses goes up, God shows him the promised land. And then it says Moses leaned on his staff, and he died, and God buried him. And they buried him in a place where nobody else would know, so that people wouldn't basically make it a shrine. It was at that point in Joshua 1 when God taps Joshua on the shoulder and says, it's time. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to step in. It's time for you to lead my people into the dream, into the promised land that I promised so many years ago. That I said this was going to happen, but they've turned the wrong way at times. And so, Joshua, it's time for you to lead them. And so in Joshua chapter 1, which let me get there real quick, because I think it's interesting, and I don't know if you've got a Bible close or you want to pull a tab up or whatever. You're welcome to do that. Joshua chapter 1. In verse 2, he says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land that I'm giving them. I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set your foot, you will be on land I have given you. From the Negev wilderness into the south of Lebanon mountains and north. And so he lays out what the boundaries are going to be. And then he says, no one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. For I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you nor abandon you. Then he says this, be strong and courageous. You are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors that I would give them. Be strong and be very courageous. Be careful to, listen to this, be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Don't deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Now listen to this, verse 8. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, So you will be sure to obey everything that is written in it. All right, now let's just stop there. Notice the words there, study and meditate. So you got the thought process. Now, the thought process is an interesting one because what he says here is, I want you to start to study this. So mull it over, research it, read it, learn it. And then he says meditate. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The word meditate has the idea to give prolonged thought to turn it over and over and over in one's mind, to think about how it applies to you, to look at all the directions that you can apply it, to look at every area, every facet of it, to keep thinking about it over and over and over again. And he says, Joshua, you got the book. Now I want you to study it. And then he says, listen, so I want you to study it. So think about, meditate on it day and night. And then he says, so you will be sure to obey, to do what's written in it. So did you get this? So here it is. The secret is, there is no secret. The secret is that it starts here, and then I have to do something with it. And then he says, notice what happens. Only then you will prosper and succeed in all you do. So now, that's not a promise that you're going to succeed and prosper in all that you do if you meditate on the scriptures. That's a misapplication and a misappropriation. But the principle is there. The principle is, the secret is your thoughts. The secret is what you meditate on. The secret is that it's got to be what you are thinking about. But he says you need to focus your thinking on the right thing. And then after you've thought about the right thing, then it's time to do the right thing. And if you think about the right thing and you do the right thing, then you will have the right results. See, what we don't often want to talk about is doing the right thing, because that's the hard part. It's easy for me to sit, I mean, thinking is hard work, but it's easy for me to sit and to meditate and just think, okay, I'm going to have this car, or I'm going to have this house. I'm just waiting in it to manifest. And meanwhile, I sit around all day and I don't go to work. I don't look for a job. I don't look for what's the plan now to be able to execute this, because that's the issue. The issue is that meditation and then execution. So let's take this a step further. So by the way, it's what he tells Joshua he needs to do. And he lays the foundation of, Joshua, you got to think about this, and then you have to do it. So meditation is thought. Meditation is what, it's not transcendental meditation. It's meditation in the scripture was, for example, let me read you this. Let me give you one other thing here. I'll go to Psalm 1. I love Psalm 1, and these are all passages that you can look at later. Here it is. This is how Psalms start. Book 1 of Psalms, which is Psalms 1 to 41. All the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. But he says, look at what he says, but they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. In other words, they are focused, they're thinking. They're not the people who are standing around following the advice of wicked people, or standing around with other people who are sinning. Now, you say sinners, sinner, not a bad word, it means to miss the mark. People that are not hitting the target that you're trying to hit. He says, don't sit around with the people that are, don't stand around with people that aren't on target with the target you're trying to hit. I mean, you want to simplify it, but sinners was missing the mark as far as God is concerned. So he says, don't sit around with the people that are missing the mark that God has laid out for them. Don't sit around with them. But he says, rather delight in the law of the Lord, meditate on it day and night. And notice what he says, the result of meditating on what God says versus what others say. They're like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit. Their leaves don't wither. They prosper in all they do. Then he talks about the wicked. And then he says, for the Lord watches over the path of the godly, but the path of the wicked leads to their own destruction. Pretty interesting. All right. Now, take you one further, because there's that word meditate again. So you have meditate in Joshua, you meditate on the law, meditate on what was said. And he says, meditate on it so that you do it, and then you'll have the success that you've been promised. Here he says, delight in the law of the Lord, meditate on it day and night. In other words, it needs to be your predominant thought. Like, what does God say about this? What thinking about, I'm not talking about running around and memorizing scripture and sitting there and rocking back and forth and all that. But the idea is the predominant mindset is focusing your thought on those right things. Now, give you another example, a passage that we've looked at before, and this one is found in Philippians. And then I know we're running short on time, so let me get to Philippians chapter 4 and take a sip of coffee. Paul is wrapping up in the book of Philippians, and notice what he says in verse 6. Don't worry about anything. Really? Like, don't be anxious. The root word for worry and anxiety are the same thing. So he says, don't be anxious about anything. Instead, pray about everything. So he says, so pray, which means you are now directing your thoughts towards God, not towards yourself, not towards how bad I am. And thank him for all he's done. He says, then you will experience God's peace, which sees everything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and mind as you live in Christ Jesus, because while you're focusing where your thoughts are on him. Now, listen to this. I love this. Final word. Now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, what is right, what is pure, and what is admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And then he says, and while you do that, keep putting into practice all that you learn and receive from me. Everything you heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. Whoa. You want to know the secret to peace. You want to know the secret to joy, and that in life, it has to do with thinking about the things that God wants you to think about. So I think it's really important. And for me in the morning, besides what I'm reading, whatever I'm going to be preaching on or teaching on that next week, I mean, that's in my mind. And people could actually hear me if they were in the car with me alone. You could hear me talking to myself about the stories or the things that I'm going to be doing or going over. But for me, one of the most important things during that time in the morning is, besides the Bible, is a journal, because I focus my thinking by at least writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. Now, this morning when I got up, I wanted to do a little extra boost. So I literally started asking questions like, and by asking a question, it then focuses my thinking. So why did God do this? Why am I focused on this goal? What is my mission? And then I can write that down. But this morning I was like, what am I happy about? What am I grateful for? What am I proud of? What am I enjoying? What am I committed to? Who do I love? Who loves me? And literally write the answers down to those things. You say, well, I don't have time to write down because we're too distracted, because we're trying to multitask too much. And, we walk and we're on our phones. We walk, and it's like this morning, I took a 40-minute walk. I got over 6,000 steps in. I talked to no one and I listened to nothing. It was the most peaceful time of the morning. So it's important to not get distracted, which means you and I have got to discipline where our thoughts are going. The thoughts can't always be on social media. It can't be scrolling and getting the dopamine hits and all the things that we need there. We literally have to discipline our mind. That's what's hard. It's not just a matter of something where is focusing my thinking takes a lot of work, but focusing on the right things that God tells us what to meditate on will make all the difference. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here today on Facebook live with us, and also on Zoom. We don't really let you join this via Zoom right now, can't do that as of yet, but we do enjoy having you here on Facebook. We appreciate it so much. And so I'm so thankful that you were here today. I am now back over on my Zoom screen, so I can't see really what you're doing or what you're saying. But thank you for being here. I'll check up with the comments later. We'll send the link out because this is something I think that we really need to pursue when we talk about our thought life and we talk about the difference that it makes. Our mindset towards God and towards life and towards others makes all the difference. And you don't suddenly get a new mindset when you embrace Christ. Again, the idea is that when you're following him, you're now focused your thoughts on following him and not following your own agenda, following your own goals, following your own things, but following what he would have you to do and who he would have you to be. So today, if nothing else, when we get off of this thing, stop and write down, do it on your phone if you have to, but write down, and there's something about handwriting, 3 things that you are grateful for today. And even if you just stop for a moment and do that, that practice alone will make all the difference and will focus your thoughts. Thank you for being with us today on A Morning Brew. Keep your questions coming to info@cbcfl.org. We will see you soon.